A lot of people I know think of Jehovah's Witnesses as nothing more than the religious people who sometimes knock on your door because they want to talk to you about God. And that's true, that is something they do, but they don't really know anything about Jehovah's Witnesses' beliefs. So let's fix that right now. Jehovah's Witnesses do not accept blood transfusions. Ever. Imagine you're in a car accident and you get taken to the hospital. They need to give you a blood transfusion so you can live. If you're a Jehovah's Witness, you will say no to that. Even worse, they won't allow their children to accept the transfusions. This prohibition has led to reports of Jehovah's Witnesses and their kids dying more times than I can remember. So why is this a rule? Like, where did this even come from? Jewish law forbade eating blood. And the New Testament in Acts chapter 15 verses 28-29 carried that command over into Christianity. By the way, that same passage also tells you you must avoid eating meat from animals that were strangled to death. Now, obviously, most Jews will accept blood transfusions because they understand that eating blood and getting a medical blood transfusion to save your life are completely different things. But Jehovah's Witnesses don't feel that way. They are both one and the same, even if it means saving your life. If you commit what the church views as a serious sin, and a group of church elders finds you unrepentant, you will be disfellowshipped. Not just kicked out of the church, but disfellowshipped, which means no one in the church can ever talk to you ever again. By the way, that could include your family. I know former Jehovah's Witnesses who haven't spoken to their parents in years because of this rule. Basically, if you're disfellowshipped, your family could talk to you about non-church related things, like how their grandkids are doing or something. But that's it. And when those family members are heavily invested in the church, there really isn't much stuff that's non-church related that they can talk to you about. So once you're in the church, leaving it basically means saying goodbye to your entire life as you knew it. By the way, what are some of the serious sins that could get you disfellowshipped? Getting a blood transfusion, going to another church, using tobacco, homosexual activity, or openly disagreeing with church leadership. Oh, and not believing in God. They believe the world's ending soon, and only they will be saved. The Watchtower Society, which governs the faith, says that Jesus began ruling over earth from heaven in 1914. October 5th or 6th, to be more precise. They believe that Armageddon is happening soon, and that only those who accept Jehovah's Witness teachings will be saved. Of course, they also said all this about 1914, 1925, and 1975. So their track record for predicting the end of the world isn't very good. Oh, and in case you're wondering, there are about 8 million people who are witnesses, and like 7 billion who are not. So odds are you're screwed. Jehovah's Witnesses don't celebrate their birthdays. Why? Well, for one, they think the day of your death is way more important than the day that you were born. So who cares? Also, the Bible only mentions birthdays twice, and both times someone died in the story. So clearly God's sending a sign for us to not celebrate them. Even though dogs are mentioned in the Bible dozens of times, never in a good way, but there's no prohibition in the church on having a pet. Jehovah's Witnesses don't celebrate other holidays either. They don't celebrate Christmas because that's Jesus' birthday. And like I said, they don't do birthdays. Easter? No thank you. Eggs and bunnies are just a corruption of Christianity. Thanksgiving? Forget it. It's not like Jesus celebrated Thanksgiving. Arbor Day? No, that's tree worship, and only God deserves to be worshipped. Halloween? No, obviously. Basically, there's only one holiday you're allowed to celebrate as a Jehovah's Witness, and it's the date that Jesus died, which is around Good Friday, but it's not actually Good Friday. Jehovah's Witnesses are currently governed by 7 dudes. The governing body formulates doctrine for Jehovah's Witnesses around the world. Women are not allowed. They don't have any special qualifications, despite being able to set policy for millions of followers, and they're appointed for life. Jehovah's Witnesses are discouraged from getting a higher education. Preaching is supposed to be your true calling, and college would just get in the way of that. So while you might be able to get away with learning a trade, church elders actively discourage you from going to a university. They don't want you to be part of a secular world, and they know how tempting it can be when you're surrounded by people who don't feel that God is watching over them at all times. More importantly, a lot of people who go to college are taught to think critically and examine their beliefs. They take science and philosophy classes, and some of them eventually shed their faith. And that's a risk the church just doesn't want you to take. Jehovah's Witnesses were the original pledge protesters. I feel like I should say something nice about the Witnesses. The first major legal battle with the Pledge of Allegiance involved a Jehovah's Witness family in the 1930s. A little boy said he didn't want to salute the flag because his religion taught him not to bow down or pledge allegiance to anything other than God. He was expelled from school for that, and the court said that was the right decision. Years later, kids from a Witness family in Pennsylvania also protested saluting the flag, and their case actually made it all the way up to the Supreme Court. And the justices voted 8-1 against the family. It was a horrible decision, and it was actually reversed by the Supreme Court in another case a few years later. But Jehovah's Witnesses do deserve credit for being the first to take a stand against the Pledge of Allegiance. Today, it's usually atheists who make the news for protesting the pledge, but historically, that hasn't always been the case. They did it. It wasn't easy. They got harassed when the cases were going on, and yet they stood strong on this issue. So good for them. There are so many resources out there for ex-Jehovah's Witnesses or people who are in the faith looking to get out. Did you know there's a subreddit just for ex-Jehovah's Witnesses? It's awesome. There are also several websites that expose the church's beliefs, and they're almost all written by people who used to be part of the church and managed to escape. My name is Hemant Mehta, and I write at friendlyatheist.com. What do you want to see a video about? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll be sure to check it out. And don't forget to subscribe.